Okay, we last left off yesterday. We were talking about the electrolyte in NiCad batteries, which consists of 30% potassium hydroxide, 70% distilled water. And we said a potassium hydroxide is made out of potassium, which comes from bananas, and hydroxide, which comes from hydroxycation. That's the old batteries. The newer ones, on distilled water, have hydroxy cut because it's hardcore and it has more power. So you often see on batteries the elite power. That's what they're talking about.
It says fruit fish.
What percent of bananas? It depends on if they are brown or green or yellow bananas. So the greener they are, the higher, the fewer they need, and the lower the concentration.
Is that what they call it? On the side of the battery?
That's what that is.
Are those just Oreo cookies?
They're Oreo cookies.
Off-brand?
Yes, and last year somebody brought in like 3 boxes of these right after this. So. All right, so electrolyte. My pen is not working. That's supposed to be an E. Didn't make it. E, and now this window popped up. I don't know what that window's even for. Electrolyte. E is for electrolyte. Electrolyte. 70%. Who what?
Potassium.
Distilled water. And then 30% potassium hydroxide. Well, I'm not going to write this because it's not accurate enough to really write, but my notes, it's like, I want you to get the idea. It's like the opposite of sulfuric acid. Potassium is a base, so never store, work on, or charge NiCads in the same area as lead acid batteries, because I think that is a Q&A. Yeah. So, do not work on, store, what else, all right, charge NiCads in same room as lead acid. But I also told you I've read stuff that says that's really not true. But if it's a Q&A question, it becomes true. Okay, there's a vent cap on the top. The vent cap allows the release of gases. Gases under pressure. I have 10 psi for one battery manufacturer. But, and this is what they claim, seals in the electrolyte. So in theory, the gas comes out, but the electrolyte stays in. It's a great theory, but we know it to be not exactly true because NiCads get this like a white powdery substance. When you pop open the lid, there's white powder all over the place, and that white powdery residue is the potassium hydroxide coming out. All right, principles of operation.
Is that 3 principles of operation?
3, period.
Got it.
The principles of operation. And I have way too much information. I'm just going to put some key things. I'll talk about it. You can write what you want. Discharge. And if there's something that we should put down, I will put it down. Discharge. Plates only change in oxidation state, not the physical state. They don't dissolve, which gives a longer life. The positive plate, which is made of nickel oxyhydroxide, and the negative plate, which is cadmium. As the battery discharges, the hydrogen ions from the electrolyte combine with the CD in the negative plates. This releases electrons in the plate, causing excessive electrons. I don't want to read all this. There we go. All wondering, there's certain things on my notes that I've circled. I was like, I wonder why I circled that. And then I get to because that's the thing I'm going to talk about. So, key points. Electrolyte. Specific gravity remains the same. Because hydrogen ions are at, well, we don't need to go because. You don't have to write that. You just need to know it stays the same. I'll tell you why. Because hydrogen ions are added as fast as they are removed into the electrolyte. So electrolyte stays the same. As the battery discharges, plates absorb, this one, electrolyte stays the same. So can we use a hydrometer to figure out the state of charge? No. That's why you're not doing it. That's why we just kind of bypass that whole thing. If you ever wondered, hey, why are we doing the hydrometer on the lead acid, but we haven't done it with the NiCad? Because it's going to stay the same. So as battery discharges, the plates absorb some electrolyte. Which means the electrolyte level drops.
So Kevin, what happened if you continually added distilled water while you were discharging it?
Nothing.
It wouldn't do anything?
It's fine. You can do it all you want.
Recharge it, you make a mess.
It's only, what's that?
When you recharge it,
Oh, now you got a problem.
Mess.
Now you got a problem.
Like Mentos and Coke.
I don't know if it's that bad, but okay. During the charge, let's see, charge, everything I want to talk about here, charge. I'm not going to go through the chemical process. Let's see. You still get hydrogen gas, so I'll put that overcharging. Overcharging, let me see. Additional charging causes water to decompose by electrolysis. Electrolysis of the water is a decomposition of water, H2O, into oxygen, O2, and hydrogen gas, H2, due to the electric current being passed through the water. So overcharging still causes hydrogen gas. Hydrogen is released by the negative plates, and oxygen is released by the positive. So you got a nice oxidizer to go along with your explosive gas. Water is lost. Water is lost by evaporation and overcharging. Overcharging. All right, there is a significant problem with NiCads, aside from their cost, and that's something called thermal runaway. And it's a real thing, and it actually does happen, and that's why I pointed out right up front, when I showed you a picture of a NiCad, I said, hey, right there is the little temperature sensor, because NiCads have temperature sensors. So thermal runaway, it's kind of a long thing, I don't want to write it all out, but the cellophane in the separator keeps oxygen that is generated from overcharging from the positive plate from reaching the negative plate, right? So you got the plates, you got a separator, that cellophane, you got to keep the oxygen from coming across. Oxygen reaching the negative plate recombines with the cadmium and creates heat. Follow me? So now you got some heat buildup. Heat creates the oxygen. So we had a problem with oxygen getting through the cellophane to the other plate, creating heat. But the heat creates the oxygen. So you get more oxygen, it's going to cross the separator and go to the other plate. Goes to the other plate, creates heat. Heat causes oxygen, which starts this thermal runaway. So which causes more breakdown of the separators and then lowers even the internal resistance getting through the separators, which then causes it to just run away. So it's kind of like a nuclear meltdown there. So runaway, there's another term you may see, or, this is a nice one, Vicious cycling. Vicious cycling. I thought that was just really angry bike riders. Okay. So,
Bicycle riders on the mountain roads.
let's see. We can condense this. Caused by O2, oxygen reaching negative plate. Which causes heat, which causes more O2, which causes more heat. Tell me when to stop writing this.
It's a vicious
Good.
cycle.
Oh, vicious. It's a vicious cycle. All right. Where is this from? Runaway. Runaway can be caused by overuse of starter. So we get a problem when we start generating heat inside the battery. So that starts this whole cycle going off. So if we use the starter too much, remember I said you're not just with these turbine aircraft, you're not hitting the starter for 10, 15 seconds. You're running it. You got to bring the engine up to a certain percent before you add the fuel and the spark. And so it takes a while. So you're draining the battery down. So a good scenario would be, something like a King Air. Why I think of that, I don't know, but because those are King Airs. So if they do short hops. So you take a hop from here and you got to go over to executive. So you go, that's just for a King Air. That's a very short flight. So up, down, shut down, load people up, take off, come back over here, shut down, unload. If you did that a couple times, you're really cycling the battery rapidly. And so that's going to cause heat. So that would be a good scenario where you'd see a thermal runaway start to happen. So because of that, the FAA requires NiCads to have temperature sensors and temperature gauges. And the ability to disconnect the battery from the charging source. Because if your battery starts to run away, what's causing it? Heat. And where's the heat? I mean, the heat's coming from the oxygen, but this whole thing is happening because you're putting amps into the battery. Stop putting amps into it. Problem usually goes away.
Hey Kevin,
Yeah.
is there any type of aircraft that they use like an auxiliary power source just to start it?
Well, yeah, that's.
Well, but I mean like not like,
You mean a ground power cart?
yeah, like I guess. That's what I'm asking because I don't know.
I don't know the actual answer to this. I will tell you what, it's like the 727s, when they originally came out, I want to say that's exactly what it was. And it was an afterthought to put an APU, an auxiliary power plant, into these. That's why it's in between the wheels and the main wheel well. So yeah, I think originally that was kind of the design things, and then they being the FAA certification and whatnot, realized that okay, we can't do this. Had to add APUs, and so they add them. So no, battery starts the APU starts the engines.
Okay.
On bigger airplanes.
Yeah.
But you get something small, like I said, like a King Air. Well, no, you got a battery and you got an engine. There's nothing else going on. Yeah, you can use ground carts and stuff. Right? That's what you do, right?
Yeah, you could hook. With the King Air, you can hook up a ground power card and Some planes though they require you to hook up the ground power card no matter what. They won't just start off the battery.
But they got to be capable of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I mean it
It's
will drain
hard
the
on it.
battery way too much.
Yeah.
Just
So disconnecting the battery is usually enough to stop the runaway. Stop the runaway.
So they'll essentially just build up back the correct voltage of the battery and then turn it up and then disconnect it.
Or shut it down. You see you're starting to overtemp, shut it down. Shut it down, let it cool. And then once it cools down, well, you'd have to look at the manual at that point. I don't believe you can just turn it back on. They're probably going to want you to service the battery.
What happens generally when that thermal runaway happens? Like,
Fire?
does it pop or the? Yeah, okay.
I've never seen one happen. Hope I don't.
want to.
You want to?
No, I said I don't want to.
There's a little one.
You seen it with the little one?
Yeah, it could catch on fire.
Nice. We should do it. Voltage ratings. All right, some of this will vary a little bit, but open circuit voltage of a NiCad cell is 1.28 volts. Some variation with temperature and time since last charge, but that's pretty much what you have. Immediately after charge, battery may show about 1.4 volts. But it'll settle back down somewhere between 1.35 to 1.28. The typical CCV is about 1.2 to 1.25 volts. And that's the nice thing about NiCads, and I guess that's why they liked them, because the CCV is nearly constant. Until battery is nearly dead. And for those of you who've already done your NiCad project, did you pretty much see that? It's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. Whoa, it just died. Whoa, that just happened. That escalated quickly.
No, at that point you're going, thank God.
What's that? I don't remember where I found this little tidbit, but most NiCad batteries are 24 volt. I've never seen a 12 volt. Rated at 22 to 80 amp hours. I don't think I've ever seen a 22. Most of them are pretty big. All right, let's see some maintenance stuff. We'll tell you that a lot of the maintenance equipment for NiCads is very expensive. They're very expensive charging stations that are computer controlled. In our shop, we'd get them. We'd have to do the measured discharge. Then we would put the clamps on them and discharge it all the way down to nothing. Then service and clean everything. Then you'd have to put it back together, torque everything. And then you would start the slow process of recharging it. But during the recharge process, you had to constantly monitor each cell for a cell reversal. When they go all the way down, they have a tendency to want to reverse. And if you reverse it, and you get a reverse cell, then you had to pull it back apart and deal with the reverse cell.
Sounds like an overhaul.
Yeah. So they usually have their own log. So. our own logbook. Inspection is similar to lead acid battery, LAB, which includes what? Super inspectors. Come on, the mechanic examiner just said to you, hey, I need you to inspect this battery.
Leakage.
Corrosion.
Make sure the battery's there.
Make sure it's there, yes.
Electrolyte level.
That's a good one. Hey, inspect this. What battery?
I can't see it.
Cracks. Leaks. Corrosion. Distortion. It's got to be pretty bad before it distorts through the cell into the metal case, but hey, we'll go with that. Vent system. Make sure it's connected. What's a leak going to look like? That's 3. What would a leak look like?
Cooling at the bottom of the case.
A lot of times leaks in aircraft tend to dry up by the time you get to it. It's slow enough. So what would that look like? Yep, as white powder. White powder. Don't sniff it.
Just put it in your nostril.
If you're going to brush off some of that white powder off the top, because I showed you the picture. I'll show it to you again. Yeah. So you're looking right there
Not the bananas.
at the bananas. Oh, that's the picture I wanted. That's one of them. So that one, that's all the clips that are actually shorting out all the cells for the final drain. Get it down to 0. There we go. What are you going to clean the top of that off with?
Pressure washer.
Pressure washer and some gasoline. So we want to brush off all of the potassium that's left off, the white powder. So what are you going to brush it with? Nice wire brush. Okay. Okay, let's think this through here. Those straps are pretty damn close together. So if we were to look at the distance between here and here, I think that if you had a nylon or a wire brush that had bristles that were maybe an inch tall, you could probably start turning those bristles kind of bright red.
It's better cleaning, Kevin.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
What would you call that? Thermal cleaning?
Exactly.
All right. So do not use a wire brush.
So you spray alcohol on there and use the stainless steel brush.
Some easy off oven cleaners. I did. Okay. So use non-metallic brushes.
That way it makes.
Would you use like a citrus bath type of thing, maybe? Like a pastiche? Because it'd have to be slightly acidic because the...
Yeah. Be slightly. No.
No?
Wouldn't be slightly acidic. It's the opposite.
Because with like the battery, when the battery goes,
Yeah.
you'd have to use something that's slightly acidic because the battery's base to clean the battery bay.
Well, I guess you just have to wait till point number 6.
Okay.
I like that answer.
Electrolyte level. First of all, can we check the specific gravity? Nope, this is going to be the same. Well, you can, but hey, look, it's there. All right, so electrolyte level. Well, never add water to a discharge cell. Well, every time you discharge it and you look at it, it's like, dang, the water's low. What's that mean?
Normal.
Okay, it's normal. The plates are going to absorb the water. So if the plates absorb the water because it's dead and you add water and then you charge it up, the water's got to go somewhere, so it's going to come out. So don't do that. So never add water to a discharge cell. Clean spills with 10% concentration of boric acid. Vinegar. lemon juice, or 3% solution of acidic acid. What?
Is it acidic acid vinegar?
Yeah, it is.
There you go. I was taking it out of the manual. If a cell leaks, what are you going to do? Oops, cell leaks.
JB Weld.
JB Weld, disassemble,
And JB Weld.
disassemble the whole battery. And clean it up. And then reassemble. Did I write this already? Specific gravity remains constant. Or nearly constant. Abbreviating here, D. So the only sure way to know the state of charge. What does state of charge mean?
The level of the battery.
What's that?
The level of the capacity, well, the current capacity of the battery.
Current capacity, if it's charged, if it's halfway charged, almost dead. It's the only sure way to know the state of charge is to do a measured discharge. Which is another way of saying, hey, is this battery fully charged? Come back in a little bit and I'll tell you. And then you completely discharge it and you do the amp hour capacity, go, yep, it was completely charged. It's not anymore, but it was. This battery would have done you quite well.
But
Now it's not. There are ways to approximate the charge. So you can do that. But the only sure way to know is a full discharge. A, B, C, D, E. Charging. NiCads need to be reconditioned. About 100 to 500 hours of operation, which seems awful short. And the reason why is because cells get out of balance. And they get out of balance because of the aircraft's use of constant potential. What does that mean?
the aircraft use voltage.
It's based on voltage. What do NiCads prefer?
Amperage.
They prefer constant current. The aircraft doesn't give it constant current. It's going to give it constant voltage. And when you do that, it's going to cause different charge rates on different cells, different temperature variations. You have some cells that are buried in the middle, some that are around the outside. So you get temperature variation, you get the constant voltage instead of the constant current. Put all this together and the cells get out of balance, so they have to be reconditioned. What can I write here? Different rates. Get different charge rates. From temperature differences, so temp differences. Yeah.
I know on some batteries they have balancers, like a separate lead for balance,
They have a separate balancer.
like a lead for each cell. They have a common lead for the negative,
Okay.
and then it has for positive on either battery. It has,
Is this something in a NiCad battery on an aircraft?
I've never seen it on. I've seen it on NiCads, but
For an aircraft?
no. Okay.
Remember, you can't take technology that is out there and just apply it to aircraft because it's an incredibly expensive process. You have to get it approved. And in order to do that, somebody wants to make money. And so just because it's there, it's take something simple like fuel injection. You know, why do we not have electronic fuel injection in aircraft yet? It's not that we can't. Lycoming has it, but it's like, sorry, if you got a certified aircraft, you're not really going to get it. You can put it on your home built because it's there, we can do it. But you go to certified aircraft, it's like, no, you got to go with what we have. What's that?
That's messed up.
Yes and no. You know,
So it all depends on.
I get on my soapbox. I mean, do you want look at how
Fully floating piston pins.
look at how automotive works. You know, my dad used to work for Cadillac, and you would swear. He said, you know, in fact, I've known actually quite a few people have told me this who are in the industry that like General Motors. That for some reason I come from a General Motors family. They would say their test ground is you. They get an idea, they wonder if it's going to work, they put it in a car and sell it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't,
Recall.
yeah, if they have to.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
It's true though.
it's true, right? Is that kind of you get all kinds of stuff that is like that just doesn't
Yeah,
work.
the 19 Camaro sucked, so then they put it back on the 20.
Okay.
The 18 became a 20, like, you know, the same style.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, like I said, I come from a General Motors family. It's not knocking General Motors. It's they all do it, but that's just how it's done. You can't do that in aircraft. We're not supposed to. So otherwise, you end up with something like the 737 Max.
Whoa.
I read
That's
a
bad. Felt that burn from here.
I read a really good book about the making of the Boeing 777. I should get that. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating reading. It was well written, but it just gave you this insight into how much goes into developing an aircraft. Not only money, but how far in advance they have to start developing. I mean, places like Boeing, they have to start developing an aircraft based on a need that they are projecting some 20 years out. They have to sit and go, okay, what's it going to be like in 20 years? And now we got to start designing an airplane today to meet that need in 20 years from now. You know,
That sounds like impossible.
but they do it, you know, and then they have to build it, and they have to prove it to, you know, 150% of capacity. And who were we talking? You and I talking about breaking the wings?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do this crazy stuff with them. And in fact, I think it was a 777 was one of the first aircraft. And I'm going off the subject now, but it's fascinating. One of the first aircraft ever developed from any manufacturer that actually the first prototype was designed to be sold as a flying working aircraft. Because normally they have to build an aircraft, and as they build it, they discover all the problems. Like, okay, this guy wants the plumbing to go this guy, but this person over here designed the HVAC, the environmental systems to go this way, and the two are intersecting. So they have to go back, redraw, and they build these mock-ups. And this is the first aircraft they didn't have to do that. So the first aircraft they built, they took out and flew. And
Flying for an airline right now.
what's that?
I think it's flying for an airline now.
The number one?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think
I
so.
don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, that number two, I think, and three were.
What's
But-
the name of the book?
I'll have to look up the name of the book. I loved it. I learned so much reading this book about the design of aircraft.
Also, another interesting thing about the Boeing 707, it was the first commercial aircraft jet aircraft to fly inverted.
Okay, but we're not really, that's a little off subject. We're talking about technology and how the difference and why you can't just take something and design it and go, yep, I'm putting that in an airplane. Everything is tested. Everything is proven. Everything is, yeah, so. Sure it did. All right, okay. I think I've kind of lost where I was in my, I know, but it's, all right, NiCads prefer, I can personify it, they don't really have a preference, this way they prefer constant, what? Current. And what does it get in the aircraft? Yep. With very little, oops, very little change in voltage. And so, for those of you that have read through the SAFT manual and are doing that project, what's the voltage that keeps coming up over and over that they seem to prefer? Like 1.5 volts. You see that number a lot. I think that's the most prevalent number in there.
1.57.
Okay. Unlike lead acid batteries, I don't remember if I'm talking about this. Lead acid batteries don't do well in storage. They're. Did I cover that a little bit?
Yeah.
Good.
3 months.
What's that?
You mentioned 3 months or less.
Did? Wow. All right, good for me. All right. So, storage.
Yeah, just for that.
Storage. NiCads can be stored. Oh, I know what it is. Can you store a lead acid battery in a dead state?
No.
Oh, what happens there? Oh, you can, yeah. But
Well, before you
Doesn't
plug it
it
in,
build
turns into water.
sulfate?
lead sulfate does what?
It builds on the plate,
That's on the
which
plate.
shorts out.
Right, or we could think it likes to stick there, and you can't get it off. And once the lead sulfate's there, you have a battery that's not good. So before you store a battery long term, what do you want to do? Charge it up, yeah. And I mentioned that I take the battery out of my boat and I bring it home and stick it up on the shelf and put a little trickle charger on it, so it's good to go next year. But NiCad's not such a problem. So NiCads can be stored, charged, or discharged with no problems. And abbreviations can be stored for 6 months without loss of power.